It always helps to have a family, right? When you go through all this kind of stuff, to have a community, to have people that are there for you, that don't want to fix you, they just want to be there to hold space and listen. And I find myself in that position a lot because of what I do with my life. And I learned at a very early age in my ministry that I can never fix anybody, that all I'm here is to listen and to hold space. And sometimes we just want to jump in and go make people feel better, and there's really nothing we can do to make somebody feel better when they've had a loss. For all of us that have been in that situation, I'm sure everyone here has had a loss of some sort. You know what I'm talking about, right? So our talk title today is Permission Not to Know. So, yeah, permission not to know. So we had a saying that I was brought up with in this philosophy, and it was, I know nothing, now what can I know? Which is really powerful, because when you allow yourself to know nothing about whatever is going on in your life, then you have infinite wisdom and infinite intelligence and infinite eternal creative intelligence and love that can answer your questions, because you've let go of what you think the answer is. Yeah. So, yeah, see, one of the things that happen a lot in our teaching when we first start studying and when we first start teaching is we start talking about the principles of immortality, or the principles of cause and effect and blah, blah, blah. Cause and effect is the big one, that we are responsible for our lives and for our destinies. Nobody's doing it for us. And always the first question that always comes up is, what about this? And what about that person? And what about Tanner? What about this? And why did that happen? And blah, blah, blah. Well, to tell you the truth, we don't know. Because we don't know anyone's journey. We don't know the deepest part of them and why they came here and everything that brought them here and what their soul's journey is. We have no idea. But what we can know is we can know that, I want to try walking down here and see what happens. What I do know is that we can always know their highest and best, and know that they're safe and they're guarded and guided and protected. And that's what we do, like in spiritual mind treatment, and when we are praying or sending Reiki or whatever we're doing, we're actually putting a love around them and healing around them, so that their journey, whatever that journey is a safe one, and they're guarded and they're met with whatever they need to be met with. Because, we were met by whatever we were met with when we first came to Earth, but there was somebody there to meet us, so I have to believe that goes on. Unless we believe this is like a mean universe and it's it's bad and all of that stuff, but it's not. The universe is pure love. We might take the power and use it in different ways that are maybe not that loving, but in reality, the universe is pure love. So I always ask now, like Ernest Holmes once wrote, the world will soon learn all it needs to learn, and I'm paraphrasing it, through suffering. We'll learn all we have needed to learn through suffering at some point, that we won't necessarily suffer to have to learn something. But in the meantime, what I'm finding is that suffering or loss and all of those things, like if you think about the towers when they went down, or different things, different disasters and earthquakes and stuff like that. What happens? People come together, right? And they love each other, and they support each other, and they try to help, and the helpers all come out and all of that. So what is that? Why? There has to be a reason that we suffer. And I think the reason is, for me, is to have that happen because we don't necessarily do it in other ways right now. We go through these things and we are at one with each other. It brings out our vulnerability. It brings out our love for each other. It brings out our compassion. It brings out our wanting to help and all of that. And that's the good things that come from it. And I'm just going to use Quanta as an example because I don't know if you all read her newspaper article. She's a star now on the front page of the of the Garden Island. But that's a cat, right? But Quanta came here as a community builder, and she really proved it. I mean, I'm sorry she had to be shot to prove it, and a lot of good people get shot and things happen. But she has brought so many people together and brought such a notification to the animal world on our island and to a need that needs to be taken care of through her tragedy. Now, where we take it from there is another story, whether we pay attention. And that's usually what ends up happening. We get all into like the tragedy and helping each other and loving each other and all of that stuff. And then time passes and we go back to the status quo. Would you agree or not agree? You don't have to just in your head let me know. I can read your mind. So why do we go back? That was my other question. Why do we go back after we've had this great like upheaval and loving each other and all of that stuff? Why do we go back to then just going through our life? Because I believe that we don't take the time to keep practicing it. It's easier to go back to our comfort zone, to go back to our little shells, to go back to our own life, to go back to complacency in some ways. And so we just go back to what happened before, to our old selves, instead of taking it and keeping it alive and awake, not the tragedy, but what it brought up in us. And so how do we do that? Well, we have all the tools that we could ever need. We have meditation. We have, prayer. We have all the tools that we could ever know. Knowing ourselves, working on realizing who and what we are and who our neighbors are and all of that, instead of like keeping our distance. We have all the tools. And I believe so much that this earth plane is such a place of learning and growing and being able to, well, Ernest Holmes would say, to prove that spiritual thought force is greater than material existence. I meant something like that, material existence. In other words, your thought force, your spiritual thought force is greater than anything material. And Tanner, I don't know, guys. I don't know, and I will say I don't know any more than my other beautiful young person that passed, Nora. I don't know, and it's not mine to know. My only thing to do is to hold those people in the light and know that there's something surrounding them, a love, an infusion of love and power that is everything. It's so much greater than this. And I'm just grateful. I'm grateful because it's like when my teacher, James Mellon, lost his daughter to an accident. He said, I broke into a million pieces, but I never lost my belief in the principle of the science of mind that he teaches so well. And he said, even though, so it's not that we don't have feelings and we don't cry and stamp our feet and go why and all of that stuff, but still, the responsibility that we know that we have that teaching that we can fall back on that says that God is all there is, that light and source is all there is, and that it's eternal. And as we work on practicing that and understanding that more, then when these things come up, it's easier for us to stamp our feet and cry and mourn and all of that, and then know that there's a bottom to it that we can fall back into, which is grace. So for whatever you're feeling right now, and people that you've lost, or, the life that you have and whatever's happening in your life right now, diagnoses, all of that stuff. What I know is that there's something so much greater beyond it, and I do know that, as Ernest Holmes said, the world will soon learn that it's learned all that it can through suffering, and that there's a place within us. And I know you felt it when you've had like a really joyful experience, and you feel so close to your oneness, you feel so close to your source power, you feel so close to love, you feel close to your fellow human beings. That's what I'm talking about, and keeping that alive. So we're here, and I think, that's all I'm going to say, because I don't know anything else. I only know what I know, and I keep asking questions. In fact, just to change the subject, I've been doing some work with this thing called the Divine Collective that I learned through Marion and Glenn, and I had to open myself up to the idea that there are angels and archangels and all of this, because I never worked with it before. I just never did. I always had. And what I found out one night when I was falling asleep was that as you rise higher in dimension, you have new friends. That's what I learned. And that you can rely on those friends, and they can't bring themselves down to our lower dimensions sometimes, but they're there. And it wasn't like, it was something outside of myself. It was something that I can now rely on, and they might know more than I know only because they're in a bigger space with more perspective. So I think that's worth thinking about. And I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and it really did help me the other night when I was going through my little dark night of the soul about Tanner and Quanta. So yeah, so I think this month is about curiosity, and I think it's good to be curious. When something happens, to get curious about it, to ask questions, try to open up to answers you think might not be what you have in your head that is the answer that you have, that there might be another answer, and it more than likely is a greater answer. So thank you for sharing your loved ones here today, and for being here, and for being in community. And that's another thing. Community is so important at times like this, to know you have people that are there for you. So, and Patrick and I, and we're all here for each other. I know that. So namaste. Thank you. Thanks.